Mystery stories come in all shapes and sizes. Much like horror, you can remix a mystery to fit in with all types of plots. But one of the most popular forms of the mystery story is one of the dashing, recurring detective who appears at just the right time to solve the murder of the week. Of course, we can't talk about this form of classic mystery without mentioning both the originator and codifier of this trope, the eccentric oddball Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes' influence on mystery stories cannot be understated. In fact, you could make the argument that he's single-handedly responsible for of-the-week plots in general. In a typical Holmes story, you get reintroduced to our leads, the aforementioned detective and his exasperated sidekick John Watson. They get introduced to the plot, usually by being hired by someone, and they have some witty banter, a couple of japes and gaffes, solve the plot, and the story ends. Just how many TV shows, books, film franchises, etc. could I name off the top of my head that follow this formula? Enough that if I started listing them now, they'd probably fill the entire length of this video. Most of those other properties try to take the formula established by Holmes and his contemporaries and put their own spin on it. Maybe the story is filled with aliens, or FBI agents trying to take psychopaths down, or maybe it stars a teenage suburbanite and her weird nerd friends. But every once in a while, a series comes along and says, you know what? We're sticking to the classics. We're gonna do the most traditional mystery stories you've ever seen, and goddammit if we're not going to do it well. Also, it's going to star a defense attorney. Like, on paper, what a weird fucking choice, right? Anyway, that series is Ace Attorney. It follows the adventures of Phoenix Wright, an up-and-coming defense attorney in the city of... the first game likes to pretend it's somewhere in America, but by the second game, they just kinda give up. Phoenix Wright's greatest strength is that it takes the slight quirkiness of many of the characters in old Holmes stories and really pumps it up to 11. For the most part, Ace Attorney is lighthearted and goofy, even if it often deals with pretty serious subject matter. It's a bona fide classic of not only visual novels, but also of mystery stories in general. So hey Hedgehog, what is this shit? Where's Higurashi? Listen, okay, we're halfway through Higurashi, and it's really long, and I needed a short break, okay? Just let me cool down after that madness, and let me laugh for a minute. So yeah, I know that after Higurashi and all of that insanity, covering Ace Attorney might seem like a sudden case of whiplash, but the two games do have one thing in common. Like I just spent a good 2 minutes waxing poetic about, they're both excellent mystery stories, just incredibly different types. So I hope you brought your deer stalkers and magnifying glasses. Hello everyone, I'm Hedgehog, welcome back to this nonsense, and this is Ace Attorney. Unlike most of the things I cover on this channel, which are hopelessly niche, Ace Attorney is kind of an institution. The very first game, the one we'll be covering today, was first released on the Game Boy Advance all the way back in 2001, which frankly makes me feel old. I myself have personal experience with the game. Nearly 3 years ago now, I put together a full fan dub of that very first entry. We got pretty far too, publishing videos all the way to the end of the third case. Unfortunately, that dub fell apart due to drama, but I am so happy to welcome back most of the original cast. I'm sure they're all very happy to finally finish this monster, except Alamise, because she has to voice Old Meg again. Also, special shout out to my good buddy Miceman for allowing me to force the role of Phoenix onto him. If you want to see him and I goof off a bunch, we do a podcast together where we read bad fanfiction and give even worse writing advice. Finally, if you want to support me, my editor, and all my dumb friends so we can keep doing this, consider heading over to my Patreon where you'll get a lot of fun benefits. In order to achieve the definitive Ace Attorney experience, I am of course using the 2019 re-release of the original trilogy. Game companies are usually abysmal at preserving their old libraries, but Capcom has done an admirable job in making what most people consider the way to play Ace Attorney. Considerable work has been done to update the sprites and music that were originally very... crunchy? I think that's the word I'd use! In order to fit on a GBA cartridge while still retaining that original iconic style. Besides a few quality of life improvements, the original gameplay and story have been left largely alone. This is how you do a remaster, game companies. Take notes. The game starts, like so many mystery stories do, with a cold open to get you pumped for what's to come.
Damn it. Why me? can't get caught. Not like this. I've got to find someone to pin this on. Someone like him. I'll make it look like he did it.
Interestingly, this very first case starts off with us already knowing who the culprit is, something that our main character, whom we'll meet in a minute, doesn't. Ace Attorney is pretty well known for taking a lot of those really classic mystery tropes and playing with them in order to create a highly entertaining experience. By revealing the culprit so early, the mystery shifts from a whodunit case to a howdy did it, which is a term I just made up. TV tropes users feel free to take notes. This is a super smart move for a tutorial case because it enables you as the player to focus exactly on what the game wants, finding the proper evidence and using it against the witness without having to worry about who to pin the blame on. That'll come later. For the time being, we're now properly introduced to our pal, our homeboy, our rotten soldier.
He's my sweet cheese, my good time boy.
Boy, am I nervous.
What a stunning first impression. This is Phoenix Wright, an apprentice attorney working under the watchful eye of the much more experienced Mia Fey. Well, I have to say, Phoenix, I'm impressed. Not everyone takes on a murder trial right off the bat like this.
Thanks. Actually, it's because I owe him a favor.
As it turns out, Wright actually knows the accused. He is his best friend from grade school, and if I'm honest, is a bit of a character.
It's over! My life! Everything! It's all over!
Is that your client screaming over there?
Yeah, it's him.
Dude, I'm so guilty. Tell him I'm guilty. Give me the death sentence. I ain't afraid to die.
This is Larry Butts. Yes, the name is a pun. Yes, this is going to happen a lot in this game. Larry is, I'm gonna put this delicately, kind of a fucking loser. To the point where the kids at Wright School had a saying, when something smells, it's usually the butts. I never claimed this game's humor was top class. In the case of this case, Larry's girlfriend got offed, and Larry was the one arrested for the crime, even if there's no way this asshole could have done it. Because even if he's always fucking up and getting himself in trouble, at heart, Larry's a good guy and a good friend.
That, and I owe him one. Which is why I took the case, to clear his name. And that's just what I'm going to do.
Ace Attorney has an incredibly efficient opening. Introduce our two main characters, for now, introduce the plot, have a couple jokes, and we're already in the courtroom. Stories that start this quickly tend to have a problem where they feel rushed. It feels like we haven't had enough time with our main cast before things start happening. But in this case, I think it works very well. We're thrust into a sudden situation where we have to suddenly defend this man from getting convicted, and we have no idea what we're doing. Don't worry, Mia's gonna hold your hand through it, and you're really in very little danger of fucking up, at least until you get your bearings. But it does get your blood pumping already, doesn't it?
Court is now in session for the trial of Mr. Larry Butts.
The prosecution is ready, Your Honor.
Alright, here we go. Time to face off against the prosecution, who in this case is this freak of nature. Payne's your go-to tutorial prosecutor for these games, and he's gonna put you through a world of pain.
Mr. Wright, this is your first trial, is it not?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm, a little nervous.
This man's about to fill the pool with how much perspiration is happening here. Seeing how nervous he is, the judge makes you answer some basic questions like who your client is. This answer is pretty obvious, but you can get some funny responses from answering incorrectly, and for the freaks out there, Mia will berate you for it. After this, however, the questions get a little harder. For you, at least, because Wright didn't tell you the victim's name or her cause of death, and he is drawing a blank. This is a fantastic start. Holy shit, Wright, pull yourself together. This is the introduction of the game's primary mechanic, the court record. It stores all of the important evidence you've collected throughout the case, and it'll be up to you to use it to answer questions and call witnesses out on their lies. For the most part, this is executed really well throughout the game, although because of the nature of its format, some of the answers require really weird leaps of logic. Unfortunately, there's not really a way to rectify this, as everyone's brains work differently, and something that might make entire sense to me is not going to make sense to you at all. Although I will say that as the trilogy goes on, less and less of these instances occur. For a majority of the last case of this first game, I had to rely on a walkthrough, but I was able to muddle through most of the very last case of the third game by myself. But keep in mind as I say this that I'm kind of a dumbass. A lot of good that above average IQ is doing me when I can't solve simple logic puzzles in a game made for fucking children. Anyway, based on the information you find in the court record, the victim's name was Cindy Stone, and she was killed by being hit with a blunt object. Do you get it? Her name is Stone, and she was killed with a blunt object? I hate this game. As Payne explains, said blunt object was a small replica statue of the Thinker, which was found on the floor next to her. The prosecution is then allowed to call its first witness.
The prosecution calls the defendant Mr. Butts to the stand.
Uh-oh, Larry gets excited easily. This could be bad.
And indeed, it is very bad.
Ahem, Mr. Butts, is it not true that the victim had recently dumped you?
Hey, watch it, buddy. We were great together. We were Romeo and Juliet, Cleopatra and Mark Antony.
Didn't they all die?
I wasn't dumped. She just wasn't taking my phone calls. Or seeing me. Ever. What's it to you anyway?
Payne says that not only was he dumped, but that she was in fact seeing other men. In fact, she was just in Paris with one of them until the day she died. Cindy was a model, but not a really famous one, so she had lots of daddies to give her some sugar. You go, girl, do that grind. Like an asshole, Payne shoves this in Larry's face and asks what he thinks of her. You can either stop him or let him talk. There's not really a lot of difference. The same thing happens once Payne mentions that Larry was at the victim's house on the day of the murder. You can either let him tell the truth or tell him, and I quote, "lie like a dog." I love this game. Regardless, it comes out that Larry was there, and even though he says she wasn't home at the time, Payne claims he has a witness who can prove she was. So, yeah, this is not looking good. They don't even let you talk to Larry before he's whisked away, and the judge requests to see this witness.
On the day of the murder, my witness was selling newspapers at the victim's building. Please bring Mr. Frank Sahuit to the stand.
I hate puns, 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 I hate puns. So obviously, yeah, this is our guy. Ace Attorney will contrive at some point or another to get the real perpetrator up on the stand for every case, and Wright always proves them guilty, even though he's a defense attorney. Yeah. I'm just gonna mention it once here and then never again, most likely. Ace Attorney is not great at following actual court conventions. I mean, to be fair, it would be a very different game if you were exclusively concerned with getting your client off the hook. The most infuriating part is that every once in a while, it will mention that your job is not to find the real perp, and Wright will do it anyway. I don't actually care about it all that much. Ace Attorney is a really wacky game, to say the least, so for the sake of it having a somewhat lighter tone and telling the stories it wants to tell, I'm willing to let it slide. This is a silly, silly game where characters' names are puns. I don't think they're going to be necessarily read up on the intricacies of the court system. Anyway, the judge asks Sahuit to give his testimony, and he obliges.
I was going door to door selling subscriptions when I saw a man fleeing an apartment. I thought he must be in a hurry because he left the door half open behind him. Thinking it strange, I looked inside the apartment. Then I saw her, lying there. A woman, not moving, dead! I thought to call the police immediately. However, the phone in her apartment wasn't working. I went to a nearby park, found a public phone. I remembered the time exactly. It was 1 p.m. The man who ran was without a doubt the defendant sitting right there.
Apparently, there was a blackout in the building around the time of the murder, which explains why the victim's phone wasn't working. Wright is, at this point, panicking.
What exactly am I supposed to do?
Why, you exposed the lies in the testimony the witness just gave.
Lies? What? He was lying?
Your client is innocent, right? Then the witness must have lied in his testimony. Or is your client really guilty? No, Mia, he's not. He's an idiot. Next, we come to the meat and potatoes of the gameplay, cross-examining witnesses. This is the part where you can read back through what they said, and if you want, question each individual line they said. This is how I usually play the game, and I highly recommend it solely for the pure comedic value. For the sake of this video being shorter than a TV miniseries, I will be mostly skipping over these, unless I want to torture my voice actors. Yes! Say the funny line! Dance, monkeys, dance! Anyway, Sahuit says that he came across the body at 1 p.m., but the autopsy report that we just got a look at earlier says that Cindy's time of death was at 4, so what's up with that?
Mr. Sahuit, why were you so certain that you found the body at 1 p.m.?
Gee, that is a really good question.
Great job, Wright. Way to put him on the spot. That's all you have to do. Point out contradictions. Lies always beget more lies. See through one, and their whole story falls apart. Of course, our murderer won't give up that easily. He claims to remember now why he thought it was 1 p.m., and the judge asks him to give another testimony.
You see, when I found the body, I heard the time. There was a voice saying the time. It was probably coming from the television. Oh, but it was 3 hours off, wasn't it? I guess the victim must have been watching a video of a taped program. That's why I thought it was 1 p.m.
This one's pretty easy. I'm sure even you figured out the contradiction with your smooth widow Wayne.
Hold it right there. The prosecution has said there was a blackout at the time of the discovery. You couldn't have heard a television or a video.
It looks like we have him this time, but nope, the judge seems to have endless patience for bullshit, and Sawheat is allowed to testify yet again.
Actually, I did not hear the time, I saw it. There was a table clock in the apartment, wasn't there? Yeah, the murder weapon. The killer used it to hit the victim. That must have been what I saw.
One of the things the writing of this game does exceptionally is showing you the breakdown of the witness. Now that you've called him out on his bullshit twice, Sawheat's story is getting more and more vague. While this helps you discredit him, it also hinders you from picking out the lies, considering that there isn't much there. However, we do have just enough to nail him again, because the murder weapon wasn't a clock, it was a statue. The Thinker statue. However, Payne interjects.
As the witness stated, the statue is indeed a clock. The neck is a switch. You just tilt it, and it says the time out loud.
He apologizes for submitting it as a statue, and it looks like Sawheat has squirmed out of Wright's grasp once again. However, Wright still has one more ace in the hole.
The only way he could have known the weapon was a clock is to hold it in his hand.
Yet Sawheat stated that he never entered the apartment.
You're lying! You were inside the apartment on the day of the murder.
Oh yeah? Prove it! Prove I went in there!
I'll do better than that. I can prove you were the one who killed her. You struck her with the clock, and the shock of the blow triggered the clock's voice. That was the sound you heard.
As Wright continues, Sawheat grows more and more upset.
That day, I never... Look, the clock, I heard, no, I mean, I saw.
Shut up! I hate you! It was him, I tell you! I saw him! He killed her, and he should burn! Burn! Give him death!
Holy shit. That was a bit of a turnabout. You get it? 'Cause all the chapters have Turnabout in the name. You know what, never mind. One of the most satisfying elements of Ace Attorney is watching the lying witnesses grow nervous and eventually lose their cool as you continue to poke holes in their testimony, eventually taking down the mask of lies and revealing who they really are. This right here with Sawheat is the first of many examples. However, as much as this has visibly made Sawheat pissed the fuck off, the judge has one more question for Wright.
You claim the sound the witness heard came from this clock. Do you have any evidence?
And that's the rub, isn't it? Pure conjecture is not admissible in court. Wright suggests sounding the clock, and upon hearing it, they all realize it is very specific.
I think it's 8:25.
Mr. Payne, could you tell me what time it is now?
It's 11:25.
As you can see, this clock is exactly 3 hours slow. Precisely the discrepancy between what Mr. Sawheat heard and the actual time of death.
However, this brings up the question, how can Wright prove that this was the case on the day of the murder? Seemingly, there's no way to do it, and Wright almost gives up. The judge declares the end of the cross-examination, and Sawheat is almost let go. Not so fast, Mr. Sawheat. Listen up, Wright. Don't throw this one away. Not like this. Think. Mia gives Wright, and us, some sound words of advice to take into the rest of the game with us. She suggests that we don't doubt the facts, but rather try to figure out how to make the facts fit together. Ask yourself, why was the clock 3 hours slow? Figure out the reason, and you'll have your proof. Now this is where the true brilliance of this case comes into play. It's a very simple setup. The answers so far have been very simple and straightforward. Sawheat isn't some kind of criminal mastermind. But if you think back to the very beginning of the trial, didn't Payne say that Cindy Stone was in Paris until the day of her death? The time in Paris is 9 hours ahead.
The clock wasn't 3 hours slow. It was 9 hours fast. The victim hadn't reset her clock upon returning home.
And that does it. There's no more excuses Sawheat can come up with. He is arrested as the true culprit of Cindy Stone's murder.
At this point, this is only a formality, but the court finds the defendant, Mr. Larry Butts, And with that, the court is adjourned.
And Wright's first trial and our tutorial comes to an end. It was a pretty simple cut and dry case, but oh dear viewer, have a little bit of faith. If that final twist didn't at least impress you, then you still haven't seen anything yet. I think this tutorial is a brilliant start to a brilliant game. It holds your hand just enough that you can figure out what you're doing, yet still manages to pull one or two fun twists on you. Above all, the early portrayal of Phoenix Wright is great. At this point, he's kind of an idiot. A bit of a nervous wreck, but that makes total sense. It gives you as the player the excuse to experiment, to fuck around and find out, because at the end of the day, it's entirely in character for Wright. Slowly, as our confidence in the courtroom grows, so will his, and it's a journey that will only end at the very last case of the very last game. For now, though, Mia congratulates Wright for his success.
Thanks, Chief. I owe it all to you.
Not at all, not at all. You fought your own battles in there. Larry, on the other hand, is really not happy. His beloved girlfriend is gone, even if she was somewhat of a floozy. Don't worry, this might seem sad, but trust me, he'll get over it. I can practically see the headlines now. Harry Butts, innocent. Should we tell her? Nah, I don't think so.
Thanks. I really owe you one. I won't forget this, ever. Let's celebrate. Dinner? Movie? My treat.
See, I told you he'd get over it. Mia graciously turns him down, even though Wright did all the work, but regardless, Larry still hands Mia a present, the Thinker statue, which he apparently made for Cindy. Well, I think our work here is done. Shall we be off? Say, how about dinner? On me? We'll drink a toast to innocent butts.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of Harry, you were saying part of why you became a lawyer was because of him.
Yeah. Part, at least.
He promises to tell her all about it sometime soon. However, Wright leaves us with a somewhat ominous narration.
I didn't know it then, but that clock was soon going to be at the center of another incident, and my promise to tell the Chief about me and Larry would be one promise that I wouldn't be able to keep.
Hello? This is Maya. Hey Maya, it's me. Mia, what's up? You haven't called in a while. Actually, I'm calling because I have a favor to ask. I know. You want me to hold evidence for you? Sharp as always. There's a lot of buzz about the upcoming trial. I just don't feel safe keeping the evidence here. It's a clock.
Now, Miss Fay, I'll take what's mine. The papers?
I'm sorry, but I can't give you what I don't have.
Miss Fay, you are a poor liar. That must be the Thinker that swallowed those papers.
I should have been more careful.
Oh, my dear Miss Fay, I am so very sorry. But I'm afraid I must ask you for one more thing. Your eternal silence. Farewell, Miss Fay.
So, that's not a great start to this chapter. Shortly after this scene between Mia and a mysterious someone, Wright shows up at the office. He was supposed to meet her and her sister for dinner.
What's that smell? Blood? Mia!
Didn't know how he can really smell blood, but sure thing. He rushes into the office, only to see, yikes. Sis.
Who are you?
And the girl passes out. Great.
I went back to the Chief where she laid under the window. Her body was still warm. Then, all too quickly, it began to fade. Until finally, she was cold.
Once again, we're thrust into a crazy situation with very little context. All we know is that Mia is dead, there's a girl passed out on the couch who's probably Maya, and Mia was being threatened by someone, who most likely stole documents she had on them. Now, however, we enter our second mode of gameplay, and though the tension is still high, we get a second to breathe. Investigations are your primary method of obtaining the evidence that you'll use in the trials. It's a pretty simple point-and-click interface with the added bonus of the game telling you if you've already exhausted all your options from one spot, which is nice. I think this tutorial is a little odd, though. Later on in the game, most of your evidence will actually come from talking to people, but here the game makes it seem like looking around the entire environment is going to be a much bigger deal than it is. It's a weird way to tutorialize this, and I spent a lot of the rest of this first case looking around the environments with way more of a fine-tooth comb than I needed to. However, this is another factor that the subsequent games improve on. Honestly, I kind of see this first game as more of a prototype for future Ace Attorney games to come. It's got the bones right, but some of the gameplay needs a bit of fine-tuning. Anyway, there's a few interesting pieces of evidence to find here. By looking at Mia's body, you discover that just like Cindy, she was killed by getting hit on the head by the Thinker statue, and that there are some weird glass shards surrounding her. Finally, right by the body is a piece of paper. It's a receipt, with the word Maya written on it in blood. Wright tries to use the phone, but it's in the middle of having its receiver taken apart.
Police! Please come quick!
Someone across the street has seen Wright standing over the body and has called the police. But before he has time to deal with that, he realizes that the girl, who he left on the couch, is gone.
I put her right there on the sofa. Uh-oh. I hope she didn't run on me.
Maya, jump scare!
Yipes! Excuse me. Who are you? It's okay, I work here.
Maya Fey?
So, this is the sister of Mia that we've heard so much about, the one who was going to hold the Thinker statue for her. Now you're allowed to talk to Maya. You can ask her a couple of questions that mostly just serve to fill us in on the stuff we've probably already figured out. What the game really wants you to do here is present her the receipt you found. This is the main way you're actually going to get information in this game, by presenting evidence you already have to witnesses and suspects. Unfortunately, in this case it proves to be less than effective.
That's my name! Why? Why would she write my name?
Uh-oh. Now I've done it.
Before you can get much more out of her, however, police sirens approach in the distance, and here he comes, the bestest of boys, my favorite character! I'm starting to realize that I just really like detective side characters.
Alright, I'm Detective Dick Gumshoe, see?
His name is Dick.
We received a report from the building across the way, see? Got a person saying they saw a moiter. Anyway, I don't want either of you moving 1 inch, okay?
He approaches Maya.
This word Maya mean anything to you?
That's my name.
What? The victim drew this here note in her own blood, see? With her dying breath, she wrote down the killer's name.
Killer? I'm not...
But Gumshoe arrests Maya anyway. So, see, listen, the thing about Gumshoe is he's a bonehead. Love the guy, but he's usually not the most useful individual around. In fact, in this first game, he kind of acts as an antagonist and general stooge for a character whom we'll be meeting very soon. But even if he and Wright are on opposing sides, you can't hate the guy. He's like a fucking golden retriever. I mean, look at this precious boy. Anyway, Maya is arrested, Wright is taken in for questioning, and he doesn't get out until the next morning. But he can't rest. He needs to talk to Maya.
Oh, it's you, the lawyer. Good morning. Are you going to be my attorney?
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about.
Like most of the dialogue choices in this game, this one doesn't really have a bearing on the actual plot, but you can get a funny scene where Maya ends up having to cheer Wright up after he makes a dumb joke that flops. Regardless of what you say, Maya mentions that she's heard about you from her sister. Today was my junior partner's first time in court.
Wow, really? How'd that go?
It was quite the scene.
Huh, so he crashed and burned?
He's a genius. One of those strike fear into the hearts of evil types. The only thing he's lacking is experience. Makes sense to me. And I think the best way to get experience is to defend people, right? This is as good a place to start as any. I don't think we could stop Wright from wanting to investigate the death of his mentor if we tried. And plus, there's a pretty girl crying. One of the first things you can ask Maya about is her weird outfit, and as it turns out, she's a spirit medium?
That's right. The Fey family, especially the women, have always been very sensitive to the spirit world.
Apparently Mia was one too, a top-class one, but she decided to go off and become a lawyer instead. Trust me, this is not the weirdest supernatural development we're going to see in this series. Anyway, once you've gotten some evidence from Maya in the form of a voice memo recording of a conversation between her and Mia, Maya asks you to bring a letter to a famous lawyer who Mia told her to ask to represent her if she ever got in trouble. Her trial is tomorrow, and if she doesn't find one, the state will pick an attorney for her, and as we all know, public attorneys are usually not the best option. So it's off to talk to this Grossberg guy, but when you show up to his office, he's not there. Great. In that case, it's time for Wright to do what a Wright does best, some investigating. Generally, there's a sort of flow to these cases that requires you to find things in a certain order and present them to certain people, but usually at the start you're free to scope out the important locations at your leisure. Most people will head back to the Fay & Co. law offices, as that is the scene of the crime. Wright, of course, runs into Gumshoe again, who first mistakes him for Larry Butts, and then for Maya's lawyer when he gets called away. Yeah, one thing you're quickly going to notice is that Phoenix Wright is not your most strictly law-abiding citizen? He's kind of the definition of chaotic good. I mean, I guess he's a lawyer, so it tracks. Looking around the place again doesn't reveal much, just some funny comments from Wright.
Mia's favorite potted plant. I remember it had this bizarre name no one could ever remember.
Hold your line strict up, pal.
Okay, hold on. Gumshoe can't even tie his own shoelaces, but he can remember the scientific name of some random plant? Of course he can. Talking to Gumshoe yields us a little more. You can grab an autopsy report from him, and asking him about Maya gives us something interesting.
Sorry, pal, but this is one trial you aren't gonna win.
Why do you say that?
The city's put Prosecutor Edgeworth on the prosecution.
You can ask Gumshoe more about Edgeworth if you like, and the guy seems pretty intimidating. This is all we can get from him, but just before Wright leaves, Gumshoe, dearest Gumshoe, says one more thing.
I don't suppose you're planning on talking to that witness. Anyway, you better not. No influencing the witness with your lawyerly ways, pal.
Come to think of it, I had completely forgotten about her.
Way to go, pal! Her name is apparently Miss April May, and though Gumshoe says he can't tell Wright anything about her, he does inadvertently reveal that she's still at the hotel across the street. So obviously our next course of action is to go over there and, influence the witness.
Gee, this is all like something out of a movie. It's all so exciting I can hardly contain myself. Oh, let me go freshen up so I can look the part of the beautiful eyewitness.
I pity the lawyer that has to cross-examine this one.
Right? While she freshens up, you can look around the hotel room a bit. The only things of note are the fact that there's 2 glasses on the table, Wright notes that someone must be staying with her, and the fact that there appears to be a screwdriver poking out of a dresser?
Hey! Hey! What are you doing? No touching! Oh, bad boy. You really shouldn't pry around in other people's rooms now. You wouldn't want to make me upset, would you?
You can ask her about her room, what she saw, and who she is, but every time she ends up sidestepping your questions or outright denying you answers.
Ooh, observe, incident. You sound just like a lawyer in the movies. I like a man with a big vocabulary.
Oh boy.
Well, with all other options cleared, let's see if Grossberg has gotten back yet.
Ahem! So you're the one they say has been looking for me. And what do you want? I'm not particularly busy these days. Please, proceed.
According to the wiki, the name Grossberg comes from the German words for large and mountain. It's a fat joke. It's a fucking fat joke, goddammit. I see, his name in Japanese gets to be references to mystery novels and astrology, but here in the good old US of A we get, hey, he looks big, let's name him Big Mountain. Anyway, as soon as Wright mentions Maya Fey, Grossberg clams up, suddenly claiming that he's too busy to take the case on such short notice. You can press him on it, even mentioning Mia, who it turns out is Grossberg's former apprentice, but when Wright mentions he'll go elsewhere, Grossberg says something odd.
I'm terribly sorry, but I'm afraid no lawyer worth their salt will take on this particular case.
So Wright leaves in defeat. Guess he's gotta tell Maya now, huh?
I really don't think you should use that guy. He didn't seem healthy. He was all skin and bones.
What really happened? You don't mean he refused to help?
So why would this man, whom Mia was so convinced would help, turn Maya down so abruptly? The answer, it turns out, might be more complicated than you'd think.
About 15 years ago, our family was involved in an incident. There was a man and he He ruined our mother's life. There was an unusual murder case. It made quite a stir. Everyone was talking about it, apparently. The police were running out of leads, and they were getting desperate.
Wait, they didn't use a spirit medium, did they?
Of course they did. Maya's mother, who, yes, was also a psychic, gave them a name, but the man that the police captured turned out to be innocent. Some other guy found out about the police's consultation with a medium and leaked it to the press. So, yeah, her mom's reputation went kinda down the toilet. Apparently, the guy's name was Wright. So, clearly, anyone related to Misty Faye is off limits for any respectable lawyer, which just leaves Wright with one option.
I've made up my mind. I'm going to defend you whether you want me to or not. I won't abandon you. You can count on me.
He gets a smile out of Maya, and she's really cute when she smiles. That all taken care of, there's just one more thing Wright wants to look into before the trial tomorrow. He heads back to the Gatewater Hotel, and not seeing her, asks the bellboy about Miss May's whereabouts.
I believe our guest, Miss May, is currently using the facilities. If you have no need of anything, I'll be taking my leave.
Before he goes, though, he has one request for Wright.
Might I ask you to inform Miss May that there is a message for her? Please tell her that Mr. White of Blue Corp phoned.
Hey, so that name might sound a little familiar. Just a bit. It's not like I just brought it up 2 seconds ago or anything. Looking in Miss May's drawers, Wright finds something very odd. She's got a wiretap in there. So she's definitely not just the floozy that she seems to be.
Alright, I'll be using this bit of evidence in tomorrow's trial, that's for sure. For Maya's sake, I'll get to this woman's bottom. Wait, I mean, you know what I mean.
Oh, bellboy, still there?
Uh-oh, time to scram. I look forward to tangoing with you tomorrow, Miss May. In court!
Alright, time to pin Miss May! For her lies and slander. Nothing else.
The court is now in session for the trial of Miss Maya Fey.
Oh no. I have to do something about this. Dragon! Him!
What?
I need you to voice him.
You just want me to voice him because he's hot.
Shut up! Just do it! Hurry!
The prosecution is ready, Your Honor. The defendant, Miss Maya Fey, was at the scene of the crime. The prosecution has evidence she committed this murder, and we have a witness who saw her do it.
I think I'm in love. Sorry, what was I saying? Right. The judge asks Edgeworth to call his first witness, and setting a precedent for nearly every trial going forward, he first calls Gumshoe to explain the crime. I find it really fascinating how they handle Gumshoe in these court scenes, first in the meta sense, and second in the story sense. In the meta gameplay sense, he acts as a really solid warm-up for the player. Gumshoe's contradictions are usually pretty easy to pick out, and he's just such a likable guy that it's impossible for him to really feel like an adversary. I have a lot of fun telling him that he's an idiot, because he always comes back with a grin or a grim remark about how his pay's gonna get cut again. Poor guy. We stand a loser here. In terms of the story, Gumshoe provides a different kind of challenge and relationship to Wright than most other witnesses. Like I said, you never feel like you're directly battling wits against Gumshoe, cause he doesn't have any. Gumshoe is never trying to hide anything from you because he's just a really straightforward, honest guy. He's just kind of a dumbass who gets things wrong a lot. But even despite that, Gumshoe is actually frequently very helpful throughout the narrative, and these sections really help the court determine the basics about the cases. Edgeworth asks Gumshoe to explain the cause of death at the court, and he obliges, once again calling the thinker clock a statue.
You immediately arrested Miss Maya Fey, who was found at the scene, correct? Can you tell me why?
Yes, sir. I had hard evidence she did it, sir.
Detective Gumshoe, please testify to the court about this hard evidence.
As soon as the phone call came in, I rushed to the scene. There were 2 people there already. The defendant, Miss Maya Fey, and the lawyer, Mr. Phoenix Wright.
One would think that Wright wouldn't be allowed to be Maya's lawyer due to conflict of interest, but it's fine.
I immediately arrested Miss Maya Fey. Why? We had a witness account describing her. The witness saw Miss Maya Fey at the very moment of the murder.
Pressing him on a statement about Maya and Wright will have Wright be a dumbass.
Are you absolutely sure it was us?
Shut the fuck up. one final part of tutorialization is here. Sometimes you won't be able to find a contradiction right away and will have to press the witness to reveal new statements, hence my tendency to just press everything. So here the solution is to press him on either of the statements about the witness, which will have Wright ask what exactly about her testimony is hard evidence.
Huh? Did I say that? Me?
I heard you say it.
You did say it.
You said it.
Gumshoe admits that he got the order of his testimony mixed up. Man, I am already running out of synonyms for idiot. He's allowed to testify about the actual hard evidence.
After securing the suspect, I examined the scene of the crime with my own eyes. I found a memo written on a piece of paper next to the victim's body. On it, the word Maya was written clearly in blood.
You can present the autopsy report on any of Gumshoe's statements, and Wright will point out that Mia couldn't have written it.
This is a report from your department, Detective. Immediate death due to a blow from a blunt object.
Obviously, Mia couldn't have written it if she was already dead.
Objection! Mr. Wright, I beg your pardon, but when exactly did you obtain that autopsy report?
The prosecution's point being?
That autopsy report is outdated, Your Honor. A second autopsy was performed yesterday at my request. Death was almost immediate due to a blow from a blunt object, but there is a possibility the victim lived for several minutes after the blow.
And thus, one of the biggest Ace Attorney memes ever was born. So, this is obviously Edgeworth's defining character moment, at least for this game. Up until this point, he's stayed pretty quiet. Now, however, he's revealed to be a pretty ruthless bastard. Fucker had a second autopsy done specifically for the reason of amending this statement, to make Maya look more suspicious.
I've heard there's nothing you won't do to get your verdict. What reason could you possibly have had to request a second autopsy report?
Say what you will, the evidence in this report is undeniable.
Motherfucker just pulled the biggest no you in history. Now Edgeworth, his point made and Wright successfully shut down, calls April May to the stand. Damn, he really is ruthless. He makes Payne look like a joke.
Witness, your name, please.
April May, at your service, wink.
Order! An introduction should not require any reaction from the crowd. The witness will refrain from wanton winking.
This is not good. She's already captured the heart of every man in the court.
April May then proceeds to give her testimony.
It was like 9 at night. I looked out the window, you know, and then, oh, I saw a woman with long hair being attacked. The one attacking her was the mousy girl sitting in the defendant's chair. Then the woman, dodged to one side and ran away. But that girl, she caught up to her and she hit her. Then the woman with long hair, she kind of slumped. The end. That's all I saw. Every little bitsy-witsy wink.
The judge doesn't even think there's a point in cross-examining her.
I thought the witness's testimony just now was quite firm. Didn't you?
Let's put a pin in the judge, as we'll get to him later. In the meantime, Wright fights him on this point, and he reluctantly lets him go on with his cross-examination. This cross-examination has multiple levels of pressing for almost every question, even down to why she decided to look out the window at that exact moment. Even a simple question like that, she really doesn't have an answer to. However, when you try to press further, Edgeworth will accuse you of trying to badger the witness and shut you down pretty quickly. However, there are a couple of places where she makes some generalizations about the mousy small girl, and you can ask her how she knew it was our client.
Huh? She had a girlish physique. Women know these things.
There are a lot of small women on this planet. Thank you very much. But no, Wright now calls her out on her lying and explains himself thusly.
If you really have witnessed my client, Maya Fey, you would have noticed her clothes before noticing her physique.
Miss May doesn't have a comeback for that one. Until, that is, she tries her cutesy shtick again.
Rawr! What are you trying to say, you mean lawyer? I saw what I saw. I just didn't think all the trifling little details were necessary, darling.
Miss May, the court would like to remind you to please omit nothing in your testimony.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'll be a good girl, I promise. Wink.
Alright, let's talk about Miss May for a minute. I love her. She's actually a very interesting take on a femme fatale character. A very Japanese take. In general, I think I can make a pretty good argument that over on that weird little island that we all know and love so well, the power of moe, or overly cutesiness essentially, can be pretty easily compared to the power of sex appeal over here. In the States, especially in the era of the 50s noir detective, an appealing woman to the male fantasy was someone who was demure, yet sexually confident, who was mysterious and complicated, your stereotypical femme fatale. She is by definition someone who uses her sex appeal to get what she wants from men. April May is also a femme fatale, just designed for a modern Japanese audience. She has some of those classic mannerisms. She pushes her boobs together to make them look bigger, or at least I do when I'm voicing her, and she calls people darling. But also she says rawr, she winks incessantly, and she's dressed in the most egregiously pink attire I've ever seen this side of a Katy Perry video. Obviously, she's a parody of both femme fatales and the entire moe movement, so she's portrayed way more over the top than if she was a serious take on the concept, but it's still a take that works and says something interesting. You know this type of character. She's in nearly every detective story ever. Irene Adler, anyone. But here it's through such a different angle, such a different lens of reference, that she ends up being very unique and very fun to watch. She's not a good person. In fact, she's a very bad one. But isn't it so fun to watch her fall?
I did see everything. I did. The victim, the woman, dodged the first attack and ran off to the right. Then the girl in the hippie clothes ran after her, and she hit her with that weapon. I saw it. I did. That clock. The kind of statuey clock. The thinker, I think. Well, does the accuracy of my report not startle you?
Alright, we've all done this song and dance before. I know you know that Wright knows the solution to this one. Obviously, you've got to present the thinker on her statement about the clock.
Miss May, what you said just now was quite revealing.
Revealing? Oh, you'd like that, wouldn't you? Naughty Mr. Lawyer.
You just said that this statue of the Thinker was a clock, but there's no way of knowing that just by looking at it.
Edgeworth tries to claim irrelevancy, but Wright strikes back by saying that his silly little questions are all he has, and the judge takes pity on him. Miss May claims that she knew it was a clock because she heard it say the time. However, we know that to not be the case. Or, at least, I do. I guess I hadn't actually told you guys this one specifically. Wright asked the judge to take a look inside the clock.
This clock is missing its clockwork. It's quite empty.
It couldn't have wrong. Therefore, this witness is a big, fat liar.
Fat?
Tisk, tisk. Quite a show you've put on for us, Mr. Wright. Indeed, the clock is empty. However, we must ask, when was the clockwork removed? If it was after the witness heard the clock, then there is no contradiction.
However, Edgeworth's in for a surprise because oh boy does Wright have proof. Recall that Maya's phone has several memos saved of conversations between her and Mia. In one of them, had on the 5th of September, definitely before the night of the murder, Mia tells Maya about it.
I should probably tell you, the clock isn't talking right now. Huh? It's not working? That's lame. I had to take the clockwork out. Sorry.
Miss May tries to cover by saying that she saw a similar clock in a store, but we know that that clock is a one-of-a-kind that our good buddy Larry Butts made himself.
Miss May, I think it's high time you went shopping for a better excuse. Oh? Excuses not on sale today?
No, Phoenix, not you too.
Oh? What's it to you, porcupine head? That stupid clock doesn't matter, okay? She did it, and she should die for it! Die!
Holy shit. I mean, we knew she was going to have a villainous breakdown, but Jesus Christ, lady, get some therapy.
Silly me! Did I, lose it? I guess I did. Wink.
Miss May refuses to state how she knows it's a clock, so Wright does it for her. You can either claim she held it, which is a bit silly, or you can say that she heard about it. How so? Well, the wiretap we found in her room, obviously.
Miss April May, you were tapping the victim, Miss Mia Faye's phone, were you not?
Objection!
Even if that was the case, which it's not, you still have to prove one thing. Did the victim ever say that the weapon was a clock on the phone? Can you prove that? I think not.
Oh, Edgeworth, are you okay, buddy? Are you losing a case and it's making you upset? Obviously, yes, a conversation like that does exist. It's a little silly the game even makes you go through the hoops for this one because obviously the case couldn't continue if it didn't exist. The judge demands Miss May confirm that she was wiretapping Mia's phone.
Shut up! All of you! What gives you the right to talk to me like that? You lawyer! It's no fair! All of you ganging up on me like that! Oh, so I'm the bad girl! Is that it? Is that it?
Unfortunately, as much as it seems to be confirmed that Miss May is guilty of something, whether it's related to this case has yet to be seen. And she has a very firm alibi. If the murder happened around 9 at night...
Why, that's just when I was getting room service from that sweet bellboy. Iced coffee, I believe it was. You know, like normal coffee, but cold. If you don't drink it quick, the ice melts and then you have regular cold coffee.
This was highly irrelevant, but also highly entertaining. I love the stupid shit Ace Attorney characters say. Alas, this means that Maya isn't off the hook yet. They're about to close the case, but not on Wright's watch. Desperately, he asks to call the bellboy as a witness. Edgeworth thinks this is all irrelevant, but he'll agree to call the bellboy on one condition.
If Miss April May's alibi is not called into question after you examine the bellboy, you must accept the verdict of guilty for Miss Maya Faye. That is my condition.
Talk about a fucking deal with the devil over here. Just give Edgeworth a pair of horns and call him Mephistopheles. On second thought, maybe don't do that. That's giving me thoughts. Of course, all Wright can do is agree or lose the trial entirely.
Fool. You fell right into my trap.
I swear to God, if my voice actors start making Yu-Gi-Oh references again...
Phoenix boy.
God fucking damn it, I knew you were going to do this.
What is it, edgy boy?
Edgy boy.
I hate this.
He certainly does look like a bellboy.
Yes, sir, I received your summons in the middle of work, sir. I'm happy to be of service.
That tea set looks rather heavy, so without further ado, the witness may begin his testimony.
I love the fact that they made a joke about not having alternative sprites for the bellboy. That just makes me giggle a little.
I am the head bellboy at the fine Gatewater Hotel, a business for 4 generations. I believe I received a call after 8 in the evening from her guest, Miss May. She asked for an iced coffee to be brought to her at 9 on the dot, sir. I brought it to her at precisely the requested time, of course, and delivered the iced coffee to our guest, Miss May herself.
Clearly, there's something suspicious about how exact Miss May was in requesting the time, but his statements are pretty tight. In desperation, Wright asks the judge to let him have just one more question for the witness before he's dismissed. Though Edgeworth objects, the judge obliges. Asking him any one of the options will lead you down the right path, but it does certainly make you sweat, doesn't it? I decided in this particular playthrough to ask him about check-in. Entirely at random, I did not desire to haze the newbie at all.
Oh, all right, very well. My first thought was she was beautiful. Beautiful person. She's just my type of girl, so it was a disappointment, really. I am not without charm, sir, but even I'd have little chance with her lover there.
What did he say? What did you say?
Rather quite.
Did Miss May check in with another person?
Objection!
I object. That was objectionable.
Wright questions the otherwise upright bellboy about his omission, and he admits that it was Edgeworth who, of course, told him not to say anything. Apparently there was a man who checked in with Miss May, but when the bellboy went to deliver coffee, he was no longer in the room.
Your Honor, we have just learned of another person involved who may have been the murderer. As has been previously revealed, Miss April May was tapping the victim's phone, yet Miss May herself has an alibi at the time of the murder. However, that does not clear the man that was with her.
My, what a convenient little setup. But it's too late.
Too late? I suppose you'd like it if it was too late, wouldn't you? After all, it was you who hid the presence of the other man from this court.
Upstart, amateur. These accusations are ludicrous.
In this case, the judge sides with Wright, requesting that the defense and prosecution look into this matter before the next court session in the morning.
That is all today for the trial of Maya Fey. Court is adjourned.
Holy moly, that one had Wright and us on the edge of our seats. Looks like we just barely scraped by on that one. This will be an ongoing trend in this series. Wright tends to operate very improvisationally and figures out a lot of the whodunit elements of his cases in the courtroom itself. By the end of the trilogy, he gets kind of a reputation for it. I mean, it makes a lot of sense for a video game detective to operate in such a fashion. It gives us a good opportunity to feel like detectives ourselves, as it's way easier to solve crimes when everything's laid out in front of you. The game times it out perfectly so that a lot of the time, you'll be figuring out elements of the case just as Wright is, which makes for a highly satisfying experience. For the moment, Maya is just happy that she's not convicted yet.
I think I might be your newest fan! Then again, that other attorney was pretty cool too.
Huh?
That face of his, with his eyes wide and trembling lips, it sent shivers up my spine.
I'm with you, Maya. Wright doesn't really get it, but don't worry, Maya will tell him about it when he's older. In the meantime, Wright has some investigating to do. We have a mysterious man to track down, and I get the distinct impression that he might be our guy.
Don't worry, I'll find him by tomorrow. I promise.
I'm counting on you.
Wright asked to have a full transcript of Miss May's testimony, but it was so full of lies that only a single bit didn't get struck out. It might not be that useful, but you never know. For now, though, let's go get our mans. The problem is that we first have to find him, and Miss May, our only lead on him, isn't feeling talkative.
Unfortunately, there's nothing I want to be asked. Haven't you done enough questioning, you spiky head? So what is it you wish to ask of me then?
For starters, how did you get to be so totally whacked?
You can ask her about anything, but she is really insistent on not talking to you. So for the moment, let's head to the Gatewater, see if there's anything for us there.
I wanted to ask you about the man who was with Miss May.
Ah, yes, he struck me as a real lady killer, if you'll pardon the expression. I know it's from the moment I saw him, sir. He and I are of the same ilk. We both carry the scent of danger.
Sure thing, man. Sure thing. If you check out Grossberg's office again, you can notice that the giant painting in the back is now gone, and also swipe some photos from his desk. Showing the bellboy the correct one, the one that shows us this creature, will have him telling you that he can 100% confirm that that's the man who checked in with Miss May. He'll even write you an affidavit about it. He's a little gung-ho, but he's got the spirit. You can then take the affidavit to Miss May, show it to her, and then show her the picture of the man who the bellboy swears checked in with her.
Oh, fine. I'll talk. You win, lawyer. That man, he's my boss. Red White, the president of the information gathering conglomerate Blue Corp.
She won't tell you any more, but this makes a lot of sense now that you think about it. If Miss May works for an information gathering business, it explains why she had and knew how to use a wiretap. Anyway, before we go to Blue Corp, let's swing by Grossberg's again, just to see what he's up to. Well, he's here now, and though he's highly impressed by your performance, he doesn't have much to say. Unless you show him the photograph of White and tell him he was there on the night of the murder.
What's that you say? Are you quite sure? My boy, I beg your pardon, but I must ask you to leave. I need to be alone.
And he won't talk to you anymore. That's odd. Anyway, onwards to Blue Corp. Hopefully there is where we can get to the bottom of the— Oh my god, it looks like if Andrew Tate went corporate.
Welcome. Please furnish me with the title of your personage.
What the—
Your name. What's your name? I was just inquirably asking the title that you go by.
Wright. Phoenix Wright. Inquirably?
Mr. Wright, is it? Right, I see. Splendiferous. Perhaps I have intimidated you with my giantesque vocabulary.
Must hold back English degree, forcing me to correct him. Inquirably is not a word. Tell Dragon that I tolerated his presence.
You can ask White whatever you want, but like Miss May, he's not going to give you anything. He's the head of a blackmailing company. Come on, he knows what he's doing. Finally, he gets annoyed with you asking so many questions, the final straw being when Wright notices the painting on his wall is the one that used to be in Grossberg's office.
Mr. Wrong, was it? It appears you do not fully grasp your position here. I ask again, who are you?
Huh? A lawyer?
No, my feeble friend. A mere lawyer. Worth nothing. Zilch, zippo, nada. Just like that sorry excuse for an attorney, Grody Burger.
Then he punches him. What the hell? But then he claims that Wright can't do anything about it because the police and the courts are in his pocket. He asks if Wright came here from Grossberg's, and upon hearing the affirmative, gives us an incredible villain speech.
Then you must ask him, why is it that this painting of his hangs here? Perhaps then he will tell you. Perhaps he'll explain how a man could live life purely for personal profit. Go now, skedaddle. There's nothing more to discuss.
Yikes. He won't talk to us anymore, so that leaves us no choice. Wright goes to confront Grossberg. Clearly, the real reason he wouldn't take on Maya's case is because White is blackmailing him. You can also claim that they're lovers, and Wright seems oddly persistent about it. Anyway, yeah, so as we suspected, White has been blackmailing Grossberg for years, and it has something to do with the DL6 incident we keep hearing about. Grossberg, it turns out, ultimately got Misty Faye off the hook for her incorrect prediction, but the murder itself was never actually solved. Alas, as it turns out, Grossberg was the one who told White that the police had used a spirit medium, and White has since been blackmailing him, threatening to tell the police that it was him who squealed about the spirit medium to him. Shit, this is complicated. Red White over here playing fucking 5D chess. Grossberg tells you to go to Mia's office, as she's been following the fucker for years, and upon searching her files, the section that would be on White is entirely missing. However, looking under the file for suicides yields you a bunch of clippings with the word White written in Mia's handwriting.
Wait, I get it. Mia thought he was involved in these suicides. White drove them all to... I can use these newspaper clippings.
He tucks away the most disturbing of these, holy hell man, and we once more make the trek to Blue Corp. Before we do that though, I want to bring up something that confuses me to this day. Ace Attorney is goofy. It's got silly characters who have these big villainous breakdowns, and all of their names are puns. And yet, now, we're trying to pin a villain who runs a business entirely based off of other people's misery and has been driving people to suicide for years. That's pretty dark. In addition, we have our hero, Phoenix Wright. Now, at heart, Phoenix is a good guy, don't get me wrong, and he definitely falls into the common category of what most people would consider heroic. However, here he is, grabbing the most gruesome suicide newspaper clipping to use in a public setting. Ace Attorney is full of contrasting moments like this, absurdity and wackiness, somber reflections, and dark moments. And to this day, I still don't know how it balances these two tones so well. In any other game, these would contrast way too starkly off each other and would lessen the impact of both. But I'll be damned if somehow Ace Attorney doesn't make it work. It's brilliant, and I have no idea how it's done. Anyway, onwards to our doom!
Mr. Lawyer, I really hate to repeat myself. Stop bothering me. If you try my patience further, I fear a nasty accident will occur. Do I make myself clear?
Transparent.
Showing White the newspaper clipping and accusing him of blackmail is the right choice here, but it's also the wrong one. White calls the secretary to get Wright out of the building, but before he can, Wright goes off.
Mia was onto you. She was keeping tabs. For this reason, you had April May tapping her phone. Then Mia was murdered, and all the documents about you mysteriously disappeared. So, the culprit would be... Even a child could work it out, Mr. White. You did it!
We won't be needing an escort for Mr. Wrong. Instead, please connect me to the public prosecutor's office.
Uh-oh. Once he's connected, White tells the chief prosecutor that he's changed his mind and wants to testify tomorrow. Why the sudden change of heart? Well, you see, he witnessed the murder, and the man responsible is standing right in front of him.
Did I not tell you, Mr. Wrong? You are a mere lawyer, as was Miss Mia.
How dare you?
I'll point the finger at you, and you will be tried as Miss Mia's killer. Case is as good as settled. No lawyer of any worth will defend you. You'll be given a lawyer so stupendously inept that they make even you look competent.
Listen, buddy, great plan, but what if Wright just defends himself? Gumshoe shows up, and though he looks a little confused, does what he's told and arrests Wright. Later on, Maya comes to see you in the detention center. Obviously, now that Wright is the culprit, she's been let go.
I don't believe it! How many people does that man need to destroy before he's satisfied? My mother? My sister? And now you! This has gone too far! Mr. Wright, please tell me, is there anything I can do?
Wright tries to tell her there's nothing, but Maya insists.
Okay, then come to the court tomorrow.
Okay, I'll be there. I'll show them a thing or two.
Stewing in his jail cell, Wright vows that he's going to nail White right where it hurts. On his... Reds? No, I tried, but I fucking suck at puns. Anyway, the next day, Maya and Wright run into Edgeworth in the defendant's lobby. Apparently the prosecutor's department had some words for him.
He told me that whatever Mr. White says today, it will be the absolute truth. If I raise an objection, I have it on good faith that the judge will listen to me.
So, you're saying I'm going to be found guilty? End of story?
I will do anything to get my verdict, Mr. Wright. Anything.
Edgeworth, you've changed.
Wait, hold on a second. Does Wright know Edgeworth? It seems like they know each other. In fact, as Edgeworth is talking like he knows him too, Maya is just as surprised as we are. She's also surprised to hear that Wright will be defending himself, although we're not because we already knew as much. This is more like it. Wright's side of the room just felt so empty without Maya there.
Court is now in session for the trial of Mr. Phoenix Wright.
The judge expresses some concern for Wright defending himself, but quickly allows Edgeworth to call his witness.
That went far too smoothly. Why didn't the judge ask Edgeworth why his witness didn't testify before?
Obviously, it's because this whole trial is a fucking sham. Wright can bring this point up, but it is very quickly dismissed, and Red White is brought onto the stand.
Please state your full name.
You wish to know the title of my personage?
Your name.
Yes, that's what I said. Oh dear, do my locutions confuse?
Name.
My name is Red White, but my friends call me Blanco Nino. I am the CEO, or to use a more common term, the president of Blue Corp.
Those words are not synonyms! Also, one of my favorite ongoing gags of this game is Edgeworth having so much difficulty getting any of these fuckers to state their names. Currently, White claims that he did not know Mia Fey, but that he was staying at the Gatewater on the night of the murder. So without further ado, it's time to start his testimony.
Let him have it, Phoenix!
Let's see. It was about 9 o'clock, I believe. I was quietly perusifying. That's reading to you. Some papers by the window. Then I heard the bedlam coming from outside. Surprised, I turned to look at the building across the way. It was then I saw him. A spiky-haired man attacking a woman with long hair. Needless to say, that man was none other than you, Mr. Lawyer. I called Miss May over at once. She too was flabbergasted, of course. The victim, she ran away. But you gave chase. Finally, there was a terrible impaction, and it was all over.
Obviously, this testimony is so full of holes you could call it Swiss cheese. But getting the court to believe us is what's going to be the hard part. If you press him on the first part of his statement, he claims that Miss May grabbed the coffee from outside the room, which is why the bellboy didn't see him. A clear lie, but not one we can really fight him on. If you ask him about the victim running away, he will clarify that she ran off to the left. Aha! Finally, a clear contradiction can be found if you present Miss May's testimony. Hey, look, we found a use for it.
Objection! You said the victim ran to the left, but that directly contradicts Miss May's testimony. She clearly stated that the victim ran right.
White seems genuinely very confused by this.
Phoenix, look at his face. I don't think he's lying about this one.
So how do we reconcile these two statements? Well, that one's quite simple. You see, both Miss May and White are correct. How's that?
Obviously, the witness was not viewing the crime from the hotel.
Mr. Wright, What do you mean?
What do you mean he was not viewing the crime from the hotel? If he was not in the hotel, where else could he have been?
It's time to be a cheeky little bastard. Now you're presented with a floor layout of the Faye & Co. law offices, and of course, you want to point to the spot right where the killer is standing. No one in the court unfortunately seems to be buying your assertion, and White quickly steps around the issue entirely by claiming he'd like to be more clear with his testimony. Cocky bastard.
Miss May's testimony was correct, as was mine. When you assaulted the girl, she first ran to the left, then you hit her savagely. That is what I saw. Next, with the last of her strength, she ran to the right. You chased her, delivered the final blow. That is what Miss May saw. You see, you hit her twice. Don't you remember, Mr. Lawyer?
Of course, if you remember from Mia's autopsy report, yes, even the updated one, you'll recall that Mia was killed with a single blow, so you can present this evidence to any of his latter statements. White kinda starts to panic from this, and Edgeworth tries to request a 10-minute break, claiming the witness is confused.
Objection! The witness is confused because he's lying. I emphatically request that there be no break, Your Honor.
Very well. If the witness would care to revise his testimony.
Hi. It's me. Cutting in on this most crucial of moments for more annoying analysis. I promised I'd talk about the judge, so here we are. Talking about it. Now, you haven't really been able to see it yet because I get the distinct impression that the devs didn't really know quite what they wanted to do with the judge until about the third case of this game, and until they do, his character reads as pretty wildly inconsistent. You see, the judge really likes to side with Wright, even when he really probably shouldn't. I mean, of course he has to. If you didn't get any leeway on the trials, it would be game over. But he comes off in these first two chapters as rather biased, especially here when he's actively supposed to be shutting Wright down at all times, but is instead allowing him to break apart White's statements one by one. So your question probably is, what do they do with the judge? Well, they make him a fucking space cadet. Biggest cuckoo clocklander you have ever seen. I don't think this guy knows how to tie his own shoelaces. He becomes increasingly characterized by his ease to be swayed by both sides of the courtroom, and once this bit of characterization is in place, it becomes a lot easier to believe that Wright is able to squeeze as much time out of him as he does. This becomes specifically noticeable in the third game, where they briefly replace our judge with a different one, but we'll get to that in 50 million thousand years. Sorry for the tangent, it's time to destroy this man.
Well, see, I looked at the other window when I heard the thing fall. Then, the next moment, I saw Miss Mia run to the left. The killer, you attacked her, but she dodged, and then she turned and ran for the door. Then you did her in with a single blow. Thwap!
Thwap indeed.
Oh god, it's happening. The himboification. It's beginning.
Very well. You may begin the cross-examination.
Mr. Your Honor, my stomach, you see. It is hurting.
Deal with it. This is almost over.
Oh shit. So this pulling apart is a bit of a trek, so bear with me. His first statement should strike you as rather odd, so if you press on it, White will clarify that that thing is actually a glass lamp. White will add the glass lamp to his statement, but unfortunately here's where we get him. There's no way White could have seen the lamp, unbroken at least, from the hotel window because it was behind the far wall.
And the only place you could have seen that from is inside the Fey Law offices. In other words, you were at the scene of the crime when the murder took place.
This is the moment right here that illustrates how great of a starter villain White is. In fact, down to their names in the English version, a lot of subtle comparisons and juxtapositions are made between White and Wright. Think about it. Both characters are in positions of power over people's destinies, and both use that power to manipulate facts sometimes. Didn't Phoenix just get done grabbing the most gruesome suicide story and try to blackmail White with it? The main difference is, of course, that Wright does it to put away the proper criminals, whereas White does it for his own personal gain. There are many other ways in which they're polar opposites as well. Wright starts off both the first trial and this one very nervous, but slowly gains confidence and momentum as he succeeds, whereas White is slowly being broken down as he keeps getting caught in lies, and it is this balance of confidence that determines the course of this case. On top of that, isn't it so satisfying to see this asshole nearly sobbing? Wright is the most visceral of the killers in this game, the one that breaks down the most. You can start to see now that underneath all the bravado and swagger and the nonsense words, Wright is really a nervous, pathetic wreck of a man. An evil, terrible man. Each of the breakdowns of the villains and witnesses in this game serves a purpose. They illustrate different things about the characters. Wright's breakdown is meant to illustrate that even the tallest towers can be toppled, and very easily at that. Wright was set up as this incredibly powerful villain, and here he is, nearly bawling like a baby on the stand and unable to tell an even half-convincing lie. If even he can be conquered, then anyone can be.
Mr. Wright, you did it, didn't you?
Objection!
That's far enough, Phoenix Wright.
I forgot about Edgeworth.
Mr. Wright. I think the time has come. Shouldn't you confess your crime now? Ergo, confess that you placed the wiretap.
Even if Wright is down for the count, however, Edgeworth certainly is not. Don't worry, we'll get to him in the next video. Edgeworth claims that Wright knew that the glass shards were a lamp because he had been to the law office before to place the wiretap on Mia's phone. This helps Wright regain some confidence, and he once again swaggers into his next testimony, slipping right through Wright's fingers.
It was the beginning of September, the week before the murder. I had entered the Fay & Co. law offices. Of course, I had done so to place the wiretap. That is when I saw this glass light stand.
What am I supposed to do now?
Good luck, Phoenix.
Unfortunately, there isn't much here. You can press on any of his statements, and there's nothing you can do about any of them. Wright looks like he's about to give up when he suddenly hears something.
Phoenix! Phoenix, over here!
But Mia!
And he passes out. Oh, did I mention, this story has a surprising amount of supernatural elements? You didn't think Mia was just going to appear, die, and then never come back again, right?
Where am I? The waiting lobby? What happened?
Ah, you're finally awake. So, as it turns out, Mia is, of course, still dead. The face of crazy psychic powers, remember? The shock of Wright losing was enough to awaken Maya's powers, so now she's channeling Mia's ghost. The game takes just about as much time to explain it as I did, so I guess we're just accepting this now. It's not like there's much time anyway. Mia is here to tell him that it was not her that wrote Maya's name on the receipt, but that it is still important.
Look at the front of the receipt.
$1,000. Wow, big spender. Item, glass light stand. Date of purchase, September 4th.
That's right, Phoenix. I bought that stand the day before I was killed. You know what this means, right? It means that Wright's a fucking liar, and we're going to prove it. It's time for the court to reconvene, and let's nail this guy to the fucking wall.
The court will now reconvene for the trial of Mr. Phoenix Wright. Is the defendant, rather, are you all right, Mr. Wright?
Edgeworth claims that there's no point in even continuing this trial, but here we are, continuing it anyway. Wright asks for one more chance, and in a moment of cockiness that he will come to regret, Edgeworth allows it. You can present the receipt on any one of Wright's statements. As soon as it's come to light that Mia bought the stand the day before the murder, Wright finally loses it for good.
Well, can't get out of this one, can you?
No, it's impossible achievable.
I hate him. I hate him and I want him dead. However, Edgeworth still isn't done. He claims that there is no concrete proof that Wright is innocent and that he has another matter he wants to look into.
Another inquiry? This isn't going to be another one of those updated autopsy reports. This is bad.
The judge, of course, agrees, and Wright is almost let go, slipping right through Wright's fingers once again. Except,
the witness will stay.
She requests that Wright read a note out loud. When he does, he realizes that it's a list of names. Vaguely famous people, too.
Stop. Desist. Halt. Please stop. Make him stop. How did you get that list?
Admit your guilt right here, right now, or else this list will be released to the press.
I confess. I did it. I hit her. I hit Miss Mia with the thinker.
I knew it! It was Mr. Wright with the finger statue in the lawyer's office. Man, I'm good at this. And thus, there's no more reason to continue the trial. I hate to admit this, but Mia coming in to save your ass at the last second kind of feels like a Deus Ex Machina. Like, they could have just ended the trial with the receipt, but instead they felt like Mia had to show Wright a list of his former victims to get him to confess. I get that it's supposed to be an establishing moment for Edgeworth to show just how far he's willing to go, but it just ends up taking the wind out of our sails a little. It's a weird moment, and one of the few in this first game that gets nearly ironed out entirely by the second. Anyway, the case is closed. Wright is free. It's time to celebrate. Well, I never thought I'd be saying this again. But congratulations, you're lucky I was born a fae.
I'm lucky I had both you and Maya on my side.
Alas, Mia's time on the mortal plane is short, since Maya's powers are still pretty weak. Before she goes, though, she requests that Wright meet her at the law office later on in the evening. So he does. He hears a voice in the darkness, and for a minute he thinks it's Mia, until the voice mentions eating burgers. Mia is far too mature and ladylike to ever eat food.
What? Did I look like my sister?
Of course, it's Maya. She's here because Mia left her one final note. Take care of Phoenix for me.
She means the office. This office. Someone has to help with the new Wright & Co. law offices, right? And who better but me? Maya Fey, reporting for duty. Wait, no. On second thought, let's make this casual. Yo, Nick! Maya here, ready to get down to business. You don't mind me calling you Nick, do you? It's a great name. Mia said that's what your friend Larry calls you.
Holy moly, Maya talks a lot. That's good. We need someone to get Phoenix out of his own brain. I'm excited to actually have Maya be present in the next chapter, as she's one of my favorite characters. For now, however, even if they've both experienced hardship, it looks like good times might be ahead of them, so it's time to celebrate.
Right. Okay, Nick, let's do it.
Huh? Do what?
Burgers, dummy! Burgers! There's a great burger joint just down the street. Come on, time's a-wasting.
Okay, wait up.
And thus, Phoenix Wright's first real case closes. He lost something important this time, a mentor and a friend. But on the other hand, it looks like he might have gained a new one. And Mia's not gone for good, of course. She's always watching over him. I think I speak for everyone here when I say I'm excited to see what cases lie in his future.
Oh, you'd like that, wouldn't you? Naughty Mr. Lawyer.
You just...
Weissman's taken aback.
Am I distracting you, Weissman?
A little.